Okay, so we shall begin. No problem. Okay. Hi, welcome.
You're sitting here.
Yes, I'm saying no problem. Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News. I'm Robin Steinberg, and welcome to the Stienberg Review. Today we have a special guest, and he's none other than Ambassador M. Akram Saki. He is the former Secretary General and Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, and he'll be discussing with us more insights about the human rights issues as well as the future of Pakistan in his own perspective. Um, Ambassador Akram Saki, thank you for joining me here on my show at the National Critics' Choice, the Stienberg Review. First of all, tell us what made you decide that foreign service is going to be your lifetime experience?
Well, you see, when Pakistan became independent, we were young, and there were great opportunities for serving the nation. So I joined the Foreign Office through a competition, and by the grace of God, I was selected, so I spent 40 years in this. But that was not the end of life. When I retired, I started doing other things. I joined politics, active politics, campaigned with the party, and got elected to the Senate. The human rights that you have said I should speak about, when our democratically elected government was overthrown by Musharraf in October 99. I was a member of the Senate, head of the Foreign Affairs Committee and Education Committee. I was a member, and I was in the Finance Committee. And the parliamentary system was disbanded. I, along with some young people, thought this was the time to work for human rights in the military government. So in 1999 we established what was called Pakistan International Human Rights Organization. I was the founder chairperson, and I took young people with me, especially one young man, Mr. Habib Aurangzeb, who was from the tribal areas. And unlike many people who set up human rights organization in an office and then get in touch with international donors, we said no. We'll build our indigenous organization. So in the districts of various parts of Pakistan, we established voluntary groups, small nucleus, and by the grace of God, in a few years, we had about offices in 100 different places, all volunteers, no foreign financing. And we took this, that people who get into trouble and don't know where to go, we, in a sense, social service assistance. We opened the doors of decision-making authorities for them and pleaded their cases. And we provided relief to people who are unjustly held, either by the law-giving authorities because of the military government, or by the feudal lords who used to put them to slave trade and compulsory labor without payment. And in that way, we modestly started helping the people. Then we worked amongst the Afghan refugees to provide them relief. When the internal conditions were disturbed, we provided relief to people locally, internally disturbed, who were dislocated from their homes. In a modest scale, we didn't have many resources, but whatever we could do, this is the kind of work we have been doing. Now we have linked up with the other international organizations. Well, I, because of my age, don't move too much. but our young people work actively. And the president, young man who is now going to be close to 40, when he started he was 29, he is more active, and I just give him my blessings.
Now, speaking about blessings, that you have passed on the torch to carry on your cause. In the subject of human rights, do you think that Pakistan has done enough for the women and children especially?
Pakistan is making serious efforts. Fortunately, Pakistan was the first Muslim country, not the first country, which produced a woman prime minister. Unfortunately, 5 years ago, she was assassinated, Benazir Bhutto. Today, our National Assembly Speaker is a lady. We have lady ministers, and we have reserved seats for women in the provincial assemblies, in the central assembly, in the local self-government. So there is a very great emphasis on women empowerment. We have taken, when I was in the Foreign Office, we provided room for women in the Foreign Office, and now we have many lady ambassadors. So they are, I think, in the upper circles, women are playing a larger role than most advanced countries.
Now, speaking of playing a larger
But
role,
in the lower level, now there is a program of Benazir Income Support Program started by the government. The head of that program is a lady, and one of the program is women who are widows or destitute are given loans for starting their own private business. So in a modest way, we are encouraging women to get into the small entrepreneurship also. Education of women is being encouraged. There is, in Pakistan, some people don't want to send their women to mixed education. There is a women's university also. So work is going on, but more needs to be done.
now speaking more that needs to be done in Pakistan, do you think that in this upcoming elections in Pakistan next year, what do you hope to see? What kind of Pakistan do you hope to see?
I think there is a realization that successive deviation from the democratic path has hurt the interests of Pakistan. There are, with 2008, the democratic process initiated has many faults. It has not delivered fully. There is considerable amount of corruption, but yet people have faith that the only way to move forward is to have successive elections, and that would be the right process of eliminating people who are not desirable through the vote. Law and order situation is very unsatisfactory because of we are the worst victim of terrorism. The unfortunate thing is, although the war is going on in Afghanistan, where the foreign troops are, the impact is on Pakistan. When there is a pressure, people come into Pakistan. And there is now a Taliban-e-Pakistan, which are being encouraged from across the border in Afghanistan to destabilize Pakistan. So our Karachi is having trouble, our Peshawar area is having trouble, our southern Punjab is having trouble. Our first concern is that all parties should join hands and establish order. The law is moving forward, but the order is. So my view is, instead of talking of law and order, we should talk of order and law.
Order and law in Pakistan.
I mean, first we should establish social peace, and then law can operate. If there is no social peace, law becomes less effective. So I say we need order and law.
And do you think the cricket player could do that job?
Well, I don't want to comment on any particular individuals. He claims but I don't expect that he has the kind of support he claims. He has a lot of popular support, but no organization. So winning election requires organization.
Now, speaking about having an organization in Pakistan, do you think the United States have come to a point where they have to apologize for the errors they've made with Pakistan by arresting and wrongfully treated individuals in Guantanamo Bay prison, where they wrongly imprisoned some of the Pakistanis as Taliban?
The tragedy
activists?
of human life is that great powers throughout history have never had the wisdom to acknowledge their mistakes. And that is how they make more mistakes and go in the decline. I don't expect United States, even if they make amends. Obama, when he contested for the first time, he said his first act would be to abolish Guantanamo Bay.
And has that happened?
And when he was elected, he changed his mind. Now he's re-elected again. Well, first time a president changes his mind because he's subject to political pressures of need for re-election. If he's sincere, now he doesn't have to contest again. So he should be able to act more boldly. But I don't know whether he will, because he's not a free agent. The people of the neocon Bush era are really sufficiently powerful to restrain him from doing good things. Even now, there are voices being raised. The people of the United States want to pull out from Afghanistan. But there are voices in the military where they want to continue their stay even beyond. So they are talking of 10 years more in the bases, and then 10 years more, even by 2034, there are discussions. And they think something like 50 to 60,000 troops should be left in those bases.
And is Pakistan confident that the US has got the financial resources, even though right now they're in the deficit?
The United States, you see, when President Clinton left the office, they had a budget surplus of 1 trillion. In 8 years of Bush, it was converted into budget deficit of 10 trillion. And in 4 years of Obama, it has been raised to 16 trillion. So this so-called superpower has financially become very weak. There is some sane voices which say we can't sustain such a military adventure. But since they have gone since 1973 off the gold standard and dollar is the currency of exchange, they just keep on printing dollars and go on incurring expenditure.
And do you think South Asia will continue to have a strong confidence in the US superpower?
Well, it depends on the people of South Asia, how they take it. The South Asian countries, especially ASEAN countries, especially Philippines and as I mentioned, are now being encouraged to take a more assertive attitude vis-a-vis China. A fear of a growing China is being inculcated in some of these countries. I don't see China as a threatening posture. I don't see China as a threat to peace for another 40 to 50 years at all. But if there is too much pressure on China, if the Navy comes over and they start curbing China's activity, then there will be certain elements which would reflect and react against it. So then some amount of the US military budget was 48% of the global military expenditure. Chinese budget till 2 years ago was only 7% of US military budget. Now they have increased it to 10% of the US military budget. And this is already being posed as a threat to Southeast Asia. And if the US Navy concentrates in this region and prevents the emergence of China's free trade through Malacca and through this South China Sea, then you never know. China is a great power. It can also have a reaction. I was recently in China. I discussed this question with some of the people. So far, their thinking is that US is trying to provoke us. We don't want to be provoked.
But how would China respond? Do you think they would, in the end, provoke?
I think
US?
there is a little group within China which is thinking in terms of reacting strongly, but that's not yet the dominant group in the policy. There is some people who are thinking of reacting. So if the United States pursues an aggressive policy, those who are in favor of a stronger reaction might have a higher say in the councils of state. So far, their defensive policy is being maintained.
How important is the relationship with Pakistan and China? And is it both military as well as economic?
It's very important. Our initial relationship was in three sectors: defense, building of infrastructure, and political support to each other. In the defense, all three services, we have co-production of tanks, we have co-production of aircraft, and we have co-production of some small naval vessels, especially Coast Guard vessels. And there is a close cooperation in the defense field. In the political field, there is a close consultation. Now, since the 21st century, we have shifted the emphasis to economic cooperation. Our trade was about 1 billion by the end of the 20th century, normal trade. We have signed a free trade agreement. We have created a joint investment bank. We have exchanged banks into each other's country. And we have set up a target of raising the trade to 15 billion. In 2006 we did that. We have already achieved close to 10 billion. Once we reach the target of 15 billion trade, then we'll set higher targets. So there are 150 projects on which China is working, out of which 130 are actively proceeding and some are going slow. There are about 13,000 Chinese workers and engineers working in Pakistan. So, and the Chinese consider Pakistan relationships very important because China is being encircled from all sides. And the Karakoram route is the opening, it was the first opening. Incidentally, Pakistan Airlines was the first to fly to China in 1964.
Oh, that is after the revolution, is that correct?
Yes. After the revolution, the first foreign aircraft to land in China was the Pakistan Airline.
Why is it so? Is it because Deng Xiaoping has...
No, it was before Deng Xiaoping.
Oh, yes.
It was in 64. It was still Chairman Mao
Oh, yes.
and Zhou Enlai. And on the 29th of April, our first flight, 64, landed in Shanghai. And that gave them the outs. We signed our border agreement in March 63. We had January 63 trade agreement, and we then opened up. Then in 65 war with India, they gave us strong defense support. Our defense relationship started in 66. So now it is a relationship of trust and confidence and mutual respect.
Now, between the relations with China and Pakistan, which were the great leaders that give you the strongest perception and perspective?
On China?
Yes, that's right.
I think it's very strange that the initiative came in the period of Ayub Khan. First initiative. And the foreign minister of Ayub Khan was Mr. Bogra, Muhammad Ali Bogra, who had met Zhou Enlai in Bandung in 55 and developed good relations. They exchanged invitations to visit, but he was out of office, so somebody else visited. But then Bogra died, and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto became foreign minister, and he then advanced this relationship. So Bogra and Ayub started, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto built it, and then I think every successive leader has continued on the China road, including Musharraf. Although Musharraf was more in the pocket of USA than anybody in Pakistan, yet he paid several visits. The vision statement with China was signed by his visit. The friendship treaty was signed in 2005 while he was president. So China policy is one policy on which there is total national consensus in Pakistan.
Is there any one Chinese leader?
And Mr. Zardari, who's the current president, since 2008, has visited 9 times China.
Amazing. Now, is there any Chinese leader in your own experience that engulf a very strong impression on you?
Well, Zhou Enlai, for example. Mao is, of course, a historic figure, and I never had the chance of meeting Mao personally. But as a young officer, when Zhou Enlai came on his visit in '56, I did protocol duty with him, and he also passed away. The Chinese leaders are, in their policy making, more clear than any other country's leadership. If you read their policy documents which they produce after the party congress, everything becomes crystal clear. They laid down their objectives with great precision, and they achieved them.
Really? They actually achieved
them. For example, they decided they are going to double their product of 1980s by 10 years. And by 10 years they doubled it. Then they said they are going to double it by 2000 and did it before 2000. Now they have again set this target. I have no doubt that they will achieve it.
Now, what is your impression of this new leadership that's now been formed in China? Are you confident that they are able to bring China to a new level?
I have no doubt. There is a strong continuity in China. The Deng Xiaoping line has been further developed and promoted. Deng wanted development and had low foreign policy, no involvement. When the second generation Jiang Zemin came, economically China became stronger. They had greater economic diplomacy internationally. When Jiang Zemin stepped aside and gave it to Hu Jintao, and China became richer, they had more active political diplomacy. They have not yet gone to military diplomacy. They have because they virtually have no navy. They are only now building a navy. Their first aircraft carrier is an old Russian aircraft carrier which they are upgrading. And their naval power was very limited. Now they have some access to a few places. So, but they don't intend to have military projection. Their economic and political projection will definitely improve under the present leadership.
Now, about the cooperation between technologies, exchange and transfer, what do you see Pakistan's role and involvement in Southeast Asia? Do you think there will be more opportunities and there will be more enhancement for both countries to invest economically and as well as R&D?
Actually, Pakistan's main dilemma has been that India has first had the regional ambitions to have a control over the foreign policy of countries in the region. The Gandhi doctrine was something like President doctrine, that the countries of the area should have no relations with other countries without the knowledge and approval of India. In fact, this clause is written into one of the agreements with Sri Lanka at one stage. And Pakistan and India's hostility towards each other over the Kashmir question and other things has been the primary reason for non-development of SAARC as a cooperative region. Now India is also trying to play a larger role in Afghanistan, which causes concern that Pakistan will have insecurity on the two borders. China is the only country which has agreed to transfer of technology to Pakistan. Especially, they have set up 2 nuclear power plants, and there are 2 more in the process. We have. The United States has a policy of, at present, discrimination in favor of India because they're building India as a counterweight to China. And they, in spite of the fact that Pakistan is a long-term ally, they look upon Pakistan from the Indian point of view, just as they look upon the Arabs from the Israeli point of view. So United States' 2 closest allies today are India and Israel. And their policy is substantially influenced by thinking in Syria and thinking in Israel. It's only if India learns some lessons from Southeast Asia, so a country like Indonesia, for example, being the largest country, took a non-hostile approach towards its neighbors, and ASEAN became successful. If India remains politically assertive, and the United States is encouraging India to become more assertive, the chances of cooperation in the region will have a setback.
Now, speaking about opportunities, what is your view on energy and water resources for Pakistan?
Well, Pakistan is an energy deficit area. We have the potential to develop energy. For example, we have reserves of coal. We have hydropower energy coal reserves. We have wind, which we have not harnessed, and we have solar power, which we have not harnessed. But it requires determination and investment. So, our installed energy capacity is at present about 20,000 megawatts. Our maximum requirement is about 16,000. But due to neglect of the government policy, projects which have gone dysfunctional, they have not repaired them. They have not spent. So the installed capacity being 20,000, the actual realization is about 12,000. Secondly, when the first Benazir government signed the agreements with the foreign power investors, one of the clauses was that they would be paid not on what we buy, but on their capacity. Because people said, if we invest and you don't buy from us, then what will we do? So said, okay, we'll pay you on capacity, which means we will buy. Now, during the last few years, the private power projects have accumulated debts they have not been paid, which is we call circular debt. And since they are not paid, they are not buying oil and they are not producing. But under the law, their payment is to be on their capacity. So the debt is accumulating in spite of the fact that they are not producing. Somebody has to take a serious action to produce the money to pay the circular debt. Then we'll have. The other thing is, we have been negotiating with Iran for a pipeline. Iran has built the pipeline up to our border, and we are determined to get it, but there is tremendous American pressure against taking energy from Iran. India has backed out of that pipeline project. Americans are suggesting that don't build it with Iran, and we'll give you money to build it from Turkmenistan. But Turkmenistan pipeline cannot be built, in my opinion, for the next 30, 40 years.
Why?
Because Afghanistan is unstable and it can't pass through Afghanistan. And then who is going to, with the unstable Afghanistan, how are you going to raise $7.5 billion to build that pipeline?
I thought the US has made an offer to Pakistan to.
The US makes offers, but will they be able to do it? Their own economic situation being what it is. Their primary objective today is to prevent the Iran pipeline, and they are putting this as an alternative.
But now that you say that the pipeline is now at your doorstep, is that correct?
Iran has built it to our doorsteps, but our president was to go on the 7th of December to finalize it, and the American sent two very senior officers for pressure on it. Instead of going there, he went to England. He cancelled his Iran visit. So, but we still want to, I think our solution will lie if we take it from Iran. Both the gas, and they have also offered 1,000 megawatts of electricity across the border. So if Pakistan acts in national interest, the Iran project should be immediately finalized, and we should work on the Turkmenistan pipeline as a long-term project. In that we can also involve other countries. Now there is one question. Pakistan's economic development can take place just as, Japan phased out certain industries to Korea and to South Asian countries. This is a time when either Japan or China should phase out some of their industries, and Pakistan can be a good place for investment.
What about water? What's the situation like for water resources?
You see, there again, the Indus Water Treaty gave 3 rivers to us. It was a violation of the traditional concept of upper riparian rights and lower riparian rights. Instead of giving rights to both in the 6 rivers, they gave 3 rivers to India and 3 rivers to Pakistan. India, having fully utilized 3 rivers and denied 3 rivers to Pakistan, is now claiming upper riparian rights. And in the world, there is a law of upper riparian, so they are getting a little sympathy. Secondly, there was one clause that whosoever builds the dam first has a prior right. And there is an agitation created in Pakistan against building the Kala Dawak Dam, and India has built a number of dams and diverts. So we're losing water to India if we. But now there is a big urge. Normally a country saves 40% of the water that flows into dams. Pakistan currently is only saving 13% of the dam water. So water is going into the ocean. So we are threatened with the water shortage. Per capita water available in 1947 was 5,000 units. I don't know what the unit is. Now it's 1,500 left.
So how is Pakistan going to counteract the shortage of water in the future?
I think there is no option. We have to resolve the controversy and